Welcome to History Teller YT. Today we dive deep into the fascinating world of the Subanen people of the Samboanga Peninsula. Discover a unique system of governance where leadership, spirituality, and community harmony are intertwined. From the Timuay, the Council of Elders, and the Gukum, to the spiritual guidance of the Balian and the sacred stewardship of the land. Every rule, ritual, and resolution teaches lessons in peace, ethics, and respect for nature. Stay tuned as we explore the wisdom, traditions, and governance of the Subanen that have survived centuries, keeping their culture alive. Let's begin. Long before modern governments and formal institutions came to dominate the landscapes of the Philippine archipelago, the Subanen people of the Samboanga Peninsula had developed a governance system that was uniquely their own. Rooted deeply in kinship, respect for the environment, spirituality, and communal peacekeeping, their system prioritized harmony over punishment, consensus over unilateral decision-making, and restoration over retribution. In many ways, the Subanen approach offers an alternative view of leadership, one that is not based solely on authority, coercion, or material gain, but rather on maintaining balance between humans, nature, and the spiritual world. The Subanen were, and continue to be, a people closely tied to the land. Their ancestral domain, known as Balian or Banwa, was not merely a physical territory to be owned or sold. It was sacred, imbued with the spirits of ancestors and the life-giving forces of nature. Every river, forest, and rice field carried both practical and spiritual significance. From a young age, children were taught to respect not only their elders, but also the trees, rivers, and animals that sustain the community. In this context, governance was not just about ruling people. It was about nurturing the delicate web of relationships that connected families, clans, the community, and the environment itself. At the center of this system was the Timuay, the chieftain or leader of a Subanen settlement. The Timuay was much more than a political figure. He was a peacemaker, a guardian of traditions, a protector of land, and a representative of the community in dealings with outsiders. Unlike modern leaders who often rely on laws backed by the threat of punishment, the Timuay's authority depended on respect, wisdom, and fairness. Families would bring their disputes to the Timuay not out of fear, but because they trusted that he could mediate conflicts in a way that preserved dignity for all parties. For example, if two families disputed the ownership of a rice field, the Timuay would call upon the Council of Elders, hear both sides, and propose a solution that might allow one family to farm in the current season while the other shares the harvest in the next. This approach prevented conflict from escalating, reinforced the sense of fairness, and ensured the community remained united. In addition to the Timuay, governance was supported by the Council of Elders, wise men and women who preserved customary laws, known as Gukum Subanen, and served as mediators and advisors. The council was essential for maintaining continuity between generations. For instance, when a young man married but hesitated to fulfill the traditional bride price, bandi, the elders would step in to guide both families to an agreement that respected tradition while avoiding resentment. Decisions were not taken lightly. Every resolution involved dialogue, consensus, and ritual acknowledgement when necessary. Furthermore, justice in the Subanen community was administered through the Gukum, a customary court system that emphasized restorative rather than punitive outcomes. If a man stole a neighbor's chicken, he did not face imprisonment. Instead, he might be required to return the stolen item and provide compensation, angari, followed by a ritual cleansing, pamalagu, to restore harmony between the offender, the victim, and the community. This system exemplified a profound belief. Wrongdoing should not only be corrected, but also spiritually and socially reconciled to heal the entire community. This holistic approach to leadership and justice highlights the uniqueness of the Subanen system. It was a governance model that intertwined political authority, spiritual guidance, cultural preservation, and environmental stewardship. Over centuries, the Subanen maintained these practices even as external influences, from colonial powers to modern Philippine law, arrived on their lands. Understanding this system requires more than a superficial view of leaders and courts. It requires appreciating the cultural, spiritual, and ecological context that shaped every decision, every ritual, and every resolution. At the core of Subanen governance stood the Timuay, a leader whose role transcended mere administration. He was the central figure of the village, whose authority rested on wisdom, fairness, and a profound connection to both the people and the land. The Timuay's power was never enforced through coercion. It emerged organically from trust and respect earned over years of service, guidance, and peacemaking. To the Subanen, a Timuay was not merely a ruler, but a custodian of harmony, a protector of ancestral lands, and a living symbol of their cultural identity. The responsibilities of the Timuay were multifaceted, extending across social, legal, spiritual, and environmental domains. One of the most critical duties was peacemaking. Subanen communities were composed of multiple clans or families, and disputes over land, resources, or familial obligations could arise frequently. The Timuay intervened to ensure that disagreements did not escalate into long-term feuds. For instance, consider a dispute over access to a river used for irrigation. Two families claimed the right to divert water to their fields. Rather than allowing the conflict to spiral, the Timuay would convene a meeting, inviting respected elders and representatives from each family. After listening carefully to each perspective, he might propose a rotational schedule that allowed each family fair access, ensuring crops could grow while respect and community harmony were preserved. This approach emphasized consensus building rather than confrontation, demonstrating that leadership was not about domination, but about maintaining the social fabric. Beyond resolving disputes, the Timuay acted as a guardian of the land, protecting sacred forests, rivers, and other ancestral domains. Land for the Subanen was not a commodity. It was a living heritage to be preserved for future generations. The Timuay regulated who could farm, hunt, or use specific parts of the territory, ensuring resources were shared equitably and sustainably. If an outsider attempted to purchase or exploit Subanen land, the Timuay, with the support of elders, would refuse, explaining that these lands belonged to their ancestors and must be protected for their descendants. In such cases, compromises might be reached where outsiders could participate in crop sharing or limited resource use without claiming ownership. Through these practices, the Timuay upheld both environmental stewardship and cultural identity, illustrating that leadership was inseparable from responsibility toward nature. The Timuay also played a key role in cultural preservation. He oversaw rituals, celebrations, and ceremonies that reinforced community bonds and ensured traditions were passed to younger generations. For example, during planting or harvest seasons, the Timuay might lead or coordinate ceremonies in collaboration with the Balian, the spiritual leader. These rituals were not mere formalities. They reflected the Subanen belief in balance between humans, nature, and spirits. If the community suffered poor harvests for consecutive years, the Timuay would consult the Balian to determine if spiritual offenses, such as disrespecting sacred sites, had occurred. Through offerings, prayers, and ritual acts, the Balian, guided by the Timuay, restored harmony, allowing life and crops to flourish again. Another important aspect of the Timuay's role was as a representative and diplomat. In a landscape of multiple settlements and diverse ethnic groups, the Timuay often engage with neighboring communities to negotiate peace pacts, share resources, or settle disputes. In situations involving multiple villages, such as overlapping hunting rights or conflicting claims to forested areas, the Timuay would convene meetings with elders and leaders from all parties. Through patient dialogue, compromise, and ritualized agreements, he could prevent conflicts that might otherwise escalate into violence. These diplomatic skills were essential to maintaining unity among Subanen settlements and fostering peaceful coexistence with surrounding communities. In essence, the Timuay was a leader whose authority was holistic and multidimensional. He balanced justice, cultural preservation, diplomacy, environmental care, and spiritual guidance. Unlike hierarchical systems based purely on laws and penalties, the Subanen system emphasized relationship, respect, and restoration. Decisions were measured not by the ability to punish, but by their effectiveness in maintaining community cohesion, cultural continuity, and ecological balance. While the Timuay held the central leadership role in a Subanen community, he was never alone in governing. The Council of Elders served as his essential partners, providing guidance, interpreting customary laws, and ensuring that decisions honored both tradition and fairness. These elders, often respected men and women with extensive knowledge of ancestral practices, were crucial in maintaining the delicate balance between families, clans, and the larger community. Their authority stemmed not from force, but from wisdom, experience, and moral standing within the community. The primary responsibility of the Council of Elders was to advise the Timuay in all major decisions. Whether disputes arose over land, water, or familial obligations, the elders provided insight based on generations of precedent and communal norms. They acted as interpreters of the Gukum Subanen, the body of customary law that guided behavior, resolved conflicts, and protected the welfare of the community. Unlike modern legal systems that often prioritize rigid rules, the Gukum emphasized context, reconciliation, and restoration. Elders understood that each conflict had social, spiritual, and ecological dimensions, and their guidance ensured that resolutions strengthened relationships rather than creating lasting resentment. A practical example illustrates their role vividly. Suppose a young man married a woman from a neighboring family, but refused to pay the full bandy, or bride price. Without intervention, tensions between the two families could escalate into long-term animosity, threatening not only their relationship, but the harmony of the broader community. In such a situation, the Council of Elders would convene, review the circumstances, and remind both families of their responsibilities under tradition. They might negotiate a compromise, for instance, accepting half of the bandy in livestock immediately and the remainder after the harvest. This solution respected cultural norms, preserved family honor, and reinforced communal peace. By carefully balancing fairness and practicality, the elders prevented disputes from undermining the unity of the community. Beyond dispute resolution, the elders played a vital role in preserving cultural knowledge and spiritual practices. They oversaw rituals, advised the Balian on ceremonial matters, and ensured that every action aligned with the values and beliefs of the Subanen people. Their role was particularly important in education, as they guided younger generations in understanding the sacredness of the land, the proper ways to interact with spirits, and the ethical principles that underpinned all communal life. In this way, the elders were not just advisors, they were cultural stewards, ensuring that every aspect of governance remained deeply connected to Subanen identity and history. The elders also functioned as mediators and witnesses, ensuring transparency and accountability. When agreements were made, they observed, verified, and documented the terms in oral or ritual forms. For example, during inter-family or inter-village negotiations, elders would witness oaths, blessings, and compensatory agreements, guaranteeing that all parties adhere to their promises. This practice reinforced trust, provided legitimacy to decisions, and emphasized that governance was a shared responsibility rather than the burden of a single individual. In combination with the Timuay, the Council of Elders created a system of governance that was participatory, restorative, and deeply human-centered. Decisions were never dictated by fear. They were guided by dialogue, shared understanding, and respect for both people and land. Through this collaborative leadership, the Subanen maintained peace, protected their territories, and nurtured social cohesion across generations. Among the most distinctive features of Subanen governance is the Gukum Subanen, the customary court and justice system that defines the community's approach to conflict resolution. Unlike modern judicial systems, which often emphasize punishment, imprisonment, or legal fines, the Gukum focuses on restoration, reconciliation, and community healing. The system embodies the Subanen belief that justice is not merely about identifying wrongdoing, but about restoring harmony between people, families, clans, and the spiritual and natural worlds. Every act of conflict or transgression is considered in terms of its impact on relationships, social cohesion, and environmental balance. The Gukum operates under several guiding principles. First, Panaliptin, which means protecting the welfare of the community, emphasizes that decisions must benefit not just the victim or offender, but the entire village. Second, Kasabutin, or peace pacts and agreements, ensures that disputes are resolved through mutual consent and clear understanding, often sealed with ritual acknowledgement. Third, Pamalago, the ritual cleansing and reconciliation, highlights the spiritual dimension of justice, ensuring that wrongs are not only corrected socially, but also spiritually. Lastly, Ongai, or compensation for wrongdoing, balances the moral and material consequences, providing restitution to victims in a tangible form. These principles work together to create a justice system that is both moral and pragmatic, ensuring that no member of the community suffers lasting resentment or exclusion. A typical example illustrates how the Gukum functions in practice. Suppose a man steals a neighbor's chicken. In a modern legal system, such an act might result in fines or imprisonment. In the Gukum, however, the process begins with a communal meeting convened by the Timuay and attended by the Council of Elders. The offender is expected to admit guilt, demonstrating accountability and honesty. Once the facts are established, the offender may be required to return the stolen chicken along with ongari, a compensatory item such as another chicken, livestock, or agricultural produce, depending on the severity of the transgression. Finally, the Balian may lead a Pamalugu ritual, invoking spiritual cleansing and reconciliation. During this ceremony, prayers are offered, and the offender publicly apologizes, while the community witnesses and supports the process of restoration. In this way, the victim receives compensation, the offender is reintegrated into the community, and social harmony is preserved. The Gukum system is not limited to petty theft. It also governs disputes over land, marital obligations, and interclan conflicts. For example, if two families contest access to a river or rice field, the Timuay, guided by elders and informed by Gukum principles, mediates a solution that balances fairness with traditional norms. Decisions often involve rotational use of resources, shared harvest agreements, or compensatory labor, ensuring that no family feels marginalized or wronged. This flexibility allows the Gukum to address a wide range of issues while maintaining its core philosophy of restoration rather than punishment. Another unique aspect of Gukum is its integration of spiritual and social dimensions. The Subanen believe that wrongdoing often disrupts not only human relationships, but also the relationship between humans and the spiritual realm. The Balian, the spiritual leader, is often involved in ensuring that justice addresses both dimensions. Rituals, prayers, and offerings accompany the legal process, reinforcing the belief that moral conduct, social responsibility, and spiritual harmony are inseparable. This holistic approach ensures that even minor offenses are treated with respect for both material and spiritual consequences. Through the Gukum, the Subanen demonstrate a remarkable understanding of human psychology and social dynamics. By emphasizing confession, restitution, and reconciliation, the system prevents cycles of revenge and hostility. Conflicts become opportunities for dialogue, learning, and communal bonding. In essence, the Gukum reflects a worldview in which justice is collective, moral, and restorative, providing lessons not only for offenders, but for the entire community. While each Subanen settlement is led by its own Timuay, larger areas and interconnected villages fall under the authority of the Timuay Labi, or supreme leader. This position is not merely symbolic. The Timuay Labi plays a critical role in uniting multiple communities, resolving inter-village disputes, protecting extensive ancestral domains, and representing the Subanen in broader social or political contexts. The leadership of the Timuay Labi exemplifies the Subanen philosophy of governance. Decisions are made with the welfare of the community at heart, respecting both tradition and spirituality. The primary responsibility of the Timuay Labi is unifying communities under a shared vision of peace and cooperation. In the mountainous and forested regions of the Samboanga Peninsula, resources such as hunting grounds, rivers, and forests are often shared across villages. Conflicts over these resources can arise, particularly when seasonal cycles affect availability. The Timuay Labi steps in to mediate these disputes, ensuring that solutions are equitable and sustainable. For instance, if two villages claim hunting rights to the same forest, the Timuay Labi may convene a council with all Timuays and elders involved. Through extended dialogue, compromise, and the guidance of customary laws, Gukum Subanen, an agreement is reached. Village A hunts during the rainy season, Village B during the dry season, ensuring both access and conservation. The final agreement is often sealed with a ritual oath, witnessed by the community, reinforcing commitment and mutual respect. Beyond mediation, the Timuay Labi acts as a protector of ancestral lands across multiple settlements. Subanen culture regards land as sacred and communal, with rivers, forests, and burial grounds imbued with spiritual significance. The Timuay Labi ensures that external pressures, such as outsiders seeking to exploit natural resources, are addressed collectively. For example, when a logging company approaches with an offer to buy a forest tract, the Timuay Labi, in consultation with village Timuays and elders, may reject the proposal outright, explaining that the land belongs to the ancestors and future generations. At the same time, he may negotiate limited access for shared agricultural activities without transferring ownership. By acting as a guardian on a larger scale, the Timuay Labi safeguards the integrity of the Subanen territory and prevents fragmentation of communal resources. Diplomacy is another vital aspect of the Timuay Labi's role. In addition to internal governance, he represents the Subanen in wider social, economic, and political contexts, negotiating with neighboring ethnic groups or even with local government units. This requires a deep understanding of both traditional values and the external environment. Decisions must balance the preservation of Subanen culture with pragmatic responses to modern challenges, such as land disputes, infrastructure projects, or legal regulations. By serving as a bridge between tradition and modernity, the Timuay Labi ensures that the Subanen voice remains respected and that their cultural heritage is preserved amid change. The Timuay Labi also coordinates intertribal peace pacts, an essential practice in regions where multiple indigenous communities coexist. These pacts often involve ceremonial rituals, shared meals, and public oaths, reflecting a deep understanding that agreements are strengthened not merely by words, but by communal participation and spiritual acknowledgement. By leading these processes, the Timuay Labi reinforces unity across villages, ensures equitable distribution of resources, and prevents conflicts that could escalate into violence. In addition, the Timuay Labi works closely with the Balian, the spiritual leader, in maintaining harmony between humans, spirits, and the environment. When communities face calamities such as poor harvests, floods, or illnesses, the Timuay Labi consults with the Balian to identify potential spiritual imbalances or ancestral grievances. Through coordinated rituals, offerings, and prayers, the leadership restores the equilibrium believed to be essential for human, environmental, and social well-being. This integration of spiritual guidance into leadership decisions demonstrates how Subanen governance encompasses not only politics, but also ethical, cultural, and ecological responsibility. Ultimately, the Timuay Labi embodies a leadership philosophy that prioritizes collective well-being, cultural continuity, and environmental stewardship. Unlike hierarchical systems based solely on authority, the Timuay Labi derives legitimacy from wisdom, fairness, and the ability to unite communities around shared principles. Through mediation, diplomacy, guardianship of land, and coordination with spiritual leaders, the Timuay Labi ensures that governance is both holistic and deeply rooted in Subanen tradition. While the Timuay and Timuay Labi are responsible for governance, dispute resolution, and protection of the land, the Balian serves as the spiritual heart of the Subanen community. Unlike the political leaders, the Balian does not wield authority through decision-making alone, but guides the community through ritual, prayer, and spiritual mediation. Their role is essential for maintaining harmony between humans, the environment, and the unseen world of spirits, which the Subanen believe directly affects daily life, agriculture, health, and the overall welfare of the community. In Subanen belief, spiritual imbalance or neglect of ancestral rites can lead to illness, poor harvests, and misfortune. The Balian ensures that these imbalances are corrected before they escalate into social or ecological disruption. One of the Balian's primary duties is ritual healing and reconciliation. When individuals fall sick or communities experience repeated misfortune, it is often interpreted as a sign that spiritual offenses have occurred. For instance, cutting trees in a sacred forest, failing to honor ancestors, or disrespecting ritual spaces can bring disharmony. In such cases, the Balian performs Pamalagu, a ceremonial cleansing that may include offerings such as chickens, betel nuts, and rice. Through chants, prayers, and ritualized gestures, the Balian restores balance, asking forgiveness from offended spirits and reaffirming the community's commitment to ancestral traditions. These ceremonies are not mere formalities. They are central to the Subanen worldview, emphasizing that spiritual and material well-being are inseparable. The Balian also leads agricultural ceremonies, guiding the planting and harvest rituals that are vital for food security. Before sowing seeds or reaping crops, the Balian performs rituals asking the spirits for abundance and protection. These practices reinforce a profound understanding of ecological stewardship. The Subanen do not exploit the land recklessly, as the Balian ceremonies remind the community of their obligations to nature and the spirits that inhabit it. For example, in years when the harvest fails, the Balian's intervention, through ritual offerings and blessings, restores not only spiritual harmony, but often morale, social cohesion, and a sense of hope that encourages communal labor and cooperation. Another critical function of the Balian is guiding reconciliation rituals in tandem with the Timuay and Council of Elders. When disputes arise, whether over land, resources, or personal offenses, the Balian ensures that resolutions are spiritually recognized. During these ceremonies, apologies, offerings, and symbolic acts of compensation reinforce that wrongdoing has consequences not only socially, but spiritually. This process deepens the restorative aspect of Subanen justice, as offenders are reintegrated fully into the community with both social and spiritual endorsement. The Balian's role extends to cultural preservation and moral guidance. Elders and leaders often consult the Balian on matters of ethics, ritual propriety, and communal norms. For instance, in inter-village negotiations overseen by the Timuay Labi, the Balian may advise on rituals to seal agreements, ensuring that pacts are respected in both the human and spiritual realms. Through such involvement, the Balian strengthens the legitimacy of leadership and ensures that governance remains aligned with ancestral wisdom and spiritual principles. Importantly, the Balian exemplifies how the Subanen integrates spirituality and governance into a holistic system. Leadership is not merely about resolving disputes or allocating resources. It is about nurturing the moral, ecological, and spiritual fabric of the community. By performing rituals, guiding ethical behavior, and mediating between humans and spirits, the Balian ensures that the Subanen way of life remains balanced, sustainable, and resilient. Through these practices, the Subanen maintain not only social cohesion, but also a profound connection to the land and ancestors that defines their identity. For the Subanen people, land is far more than a commodity or a resource. It is sacred, ancestral, and central to identity, community, and survival. This understanding is reflected in the term Banwa or Yutan Kabalan, which refers to their ancestral territory, encompassing forests, rivers, fields, and sacred sites. Governance of this land is a critical component of the Subanen system, overseen by the Timuay and supported by elders and spiritual leaders. Unlike modern concepts of private property, land in Subanen culture is communal and inviolable, intended for the welfare of the tribe and future generations. Decisions regarding land use are carefully managed to balance productivity, conservation, and spiritual respect. The Timuay plays a central role as guardian of the land, regulating access to farming, hunting, and gathering areas. If a family wishes to plant rice or harvest forest products, the Timuay evaluates the request to ensure sustainable use and equitable distribution. For instance, if two families request the same plot of land, the Timuay may assign one family to farm this season while the other waits for the next rotation, ensuring both fairness and environmental stewardship. Sacred areas, such as burial grounds, rivers, and certain forests, are strictly protected. No individual may exploit these areas for personal gain, as doing so would violate ancestral law and disrupt harmony with the spirits. In this way, governance of the land is inseparable from moral, spiritual, and social obligations. Land governance also involves interactions with outsiders, who may seek to buy, lease, or exploit Subanen territories. In such situations, the Timuay and elders act collectively to protect the community's heritage. For example, when a logging company approaches with an offer to purchase a forest, the leadership might refuse outright, explaining that the land belongs not to any single family, but to ancestors and future generations. At the same time, They may negotiate arrangements allowing the outsider limited participation, such as sharing crops or working alongside the community without claiming ownership. These agreements maintain the integrity of Subanen land while allowing controlled interaction with the outside world. The spiritual dimension of land governance is equally important. Sacred sites are believed to house ancestral spirits or supernatural entities that oversee human activities. The Balian works alongside the Timuay to monitor and protect these areas. Rituals may be performed to honor these sites, particularly when human activities could risk imbalance or harm. For example, before expanding a rice field or harvesting resources near a sacred grove, offerings and prayers are made to ensure harmony with the spirits. Failure to do so is considered a violation not just of spiritual law, but of communal trust, demonstrating that governance and morality are deeply intertwined. Land governance also incorporates principles of sustainability and reciprocity. The Subanen ensure that hunting, fishing, and farming practices do not deplete resources. Villagers often rotate hunting grounds, practice selective harvesting, and avoid overusing rivers or forested areas. This approach is guided by the Timuay and elders and reinforced by spiritual belief, ensuring that land remains productive and sacred for future generations. In essence, governance of the land is not merely administrative. It is a moral and cultural responsibility, reflecting the interconnectedness of community, environment, and spirituality. Furthermore, the Subanen system emphasizes intergenerational responsibility. Land cannot be sold or permanently alienated because it is considered a trust passed down from ancestors. Decisions about land use are made with both current and future generations in mind. When disputes arise over territory within the community, the Timuay, elders, and Balian work together to mediate solutions that honor tradition, preserve relationships, and respect spiritual obligations. This ensures that even in times of tension, the land remains a source of unity rather than conflict. Through this governance of land and territory, the Subanen demonstrate a remarkable integration of culture, ecology, and spirituality. Leadership is exercised not for personal gain, but to maintain balance, fairness, and continuity. Land is treated as a living heritage, sacred and communal, and every decision reinforces the principles of harmony, stewardship, and justice that define Subanen governance. The governance of Subanen land is as much about managing human relationships as it is about protecting resources. Conflicts over territory, farming plots, rivers, or hunting grounds could easily escalate if left unchecked, especially in a system where land cannot be sold or permanently transferred. To prevent discord, the Subanen rely on a careful combination of mediation, tradition, and ritual overseen by the Timuay, the Council of Elders, and often the Balian. These disputes are addressed not with punishment, but through dialogue, compromise, and restorative processes that uphold both social harmony and cultural principles. For example, consider a situation where two families claim ownership of a fertile rice field. In modern terms, this might result in legal battles or even physical confrontation. In Subanen practice, the dispute begins with a formal presentation before the Timuay. Each family explains their claims, referencing historical usage, ancestral inheritance, or customary agreements. The Council of Elders listens carefully, consulting the Gukum Subanen and oral records to verify the legitimacy of each claim. Their goal is not to declare a winner in the modern sense, but to arrive at a solution that preserves relationships and fairness. After deliberation, the Timuay may decide that one family uses the field this season while the other waits for the next rotation, or that the families alternate portions of the land. The role of the Balian is critical when disputes carry spiritual implications. Sacred sites, burial grounds, or areas believed to house spirits may be involved in conflicts. The Balian performs rituals to seek guidance from ancestors and spirits, ensuring that the resolution respects the spiritual integrity of the land. For instance, if a family inadvertently begins farming near a sacred grove, the Balian may lead a Pamelaga ritual to restore harmony. Such rituals often include offerings like chickens, betel nut, or rice, accompanied by chants and prayers that symbolically cleanse the site and reaffirm the community's commitment to ancestral laws. The presence of spiritual oversight reinforces the moral weight of the agreement, making it more likely to be honored by all parties. In addition to mediation, the Subanen emphasize restorative agreements, which often include material or labor compensation to resolve disputes amicably. If a family gains temporary access to disputed land, they might provide part of their harvest to the other family as acknowledgement of shared rights. These arrangements reflect the principle of ongari, or compensation, which ensures fairness while maintaining communal cohesion. By integrating social, economic, and spiritual considerations, the Subanen system minimizes resentment and prevents disputes from becoming long-term conflict that could fragment the community. Another aspect of land governance involves inter-village disputes. Since rivers, forests, and hunting grounds often span multiple settlements, the Timuay Labi plays a central role in resolving conflicts between villages. These disputes require coordination among multiple Timuays, elders, and sometimes Balian. Agreements are reached through dialogue, rotational access schedules, shared resource plans, and ceremonial oaths that are publicly witnessed. For example, two villages claiming the same hunting forest may agree that one village hunts during the rainy season and the other during the dry season. The agreement is formalized with ritual offerings and prayers to the spirits, ensuring both fairness and spiritual acknowledgement. These practices prevent inter-village tensions from escalating into violence and reinforce the collective stewardship of land and resources. Through these processes, land governance becomes a living system of justice, ethics, and sustainability. Conflicts are transformed into opportunities for dialogue, learning, and strengthened relationships. The combined authority of the Timuay, elders, and Balian ensures that every resolution reflects Subanen values: respect for ancestors, care for the environment, and maintenance of social harmony. Land is more than soil and trees. It is a conduit of culture, spirituality, and community identity, and governance is the mechanism through which this sacred legacy is preserved for future generations. Despite centuries of change and the introduction of formal Philippine law, the Subanen governance system remains resilient, operating alongside modern legal frameworks while maintaining its traditional practices. The Timuay Labi, Council of Elders, and Balian continue to play vital roles in decision-making, dispute resolution, and community leadership, illustrating the adaptability and enduring relevance of ancestral governance. Today, Subanen communities navigate a dual system. They respect national laws while preserving the principles and customs that have guided their people for generations. Modern recognition of Subanen leadership often occurs in both social and legal contexts. For example, local government units may consult the Timuay or Council of Elders when implementing projects that affect ancestral lands, forests, or waterways. Their knowledge of traditional land boundaries, sacred sites, and communal practices is invaluable for preventing conflict and ensuring sustainable development. This collaboration demonstrates mutual respect. Governmental authorities acknowledge Subanen expertise, while the community adapts its traditional practices to contemporary regulations. In many ways, This coexistence highlights the Subanen system's flexibility, showing that traditional governance is not rigid, but evolves to meet new circumstances without losing its core values. The Subanen's restorative justice practices are also recognized informally within the broader society. Cases such as petty theft, domestic disputes, or land disagreements may first be addressed through customary mediation before reaching formal courts. For instance, if a young man violates a communal norm or steals property, the Timuay and Council of Elders can convene a Gukum Subanen session. Through confession, compensation, ongari, and ritual reconciliation, Pamela, the conflict is resolved in a manner that restores relationships rather than punishes harshly. Modern authorities often respect these resolutions, especially when both parties accept the outcome, acknowledging that the Subanen approach aligns with principles of social harmony and restorative justice. Furthermore, Subanen leaders actively participate in advocacy and cultural preservation. The Timuay Labi, for example, may represent the community in dialogues with regional or national institutions, ensuring that Subanen voices are heard in policy making or land rights discussions. Spiritual and cultural leaders, like the Balian, often collaborate with educators and NGOs to maintain rituals, oral traditions, and environmental stewardship practices, ensuring that younger generations understand both ancestral and contemporary governance. By bridging traditional authority with modern frameworks, Subanen leaders preserve cultural identity while navigating an increasingly complex legal and social landscape. An illustrative example involves ancestral land disputes in areas undergoing development. When an external company proposes infrastructure or commercial projects on Subanen territory, the Timuay, Council of Elders, and Balian consult with the community and negotiate terms that respect ancestral laws. They may permit limited access or benefit sharing while safeguarding sacred sites and communal rights. Such negotiations reflect a deep understanding of both traditional principles and modern legal mechanisms, allowing the community to protect its heritage while engaging with broader society. Through these adaptations, the Subanen demonstrate that traditional governance is not obsolete. Rather, it is dynamic and enduring. Their system preserves harmony, respects nature, safeguards sacred sites, and maintains social cohesion, proving that ancestral methods of leadership remain highly relevant. The coexistence of Subanen governance and Philippine law is a testament to the community's resilience, wisdom, and commitment to both continuity and adaptation. The Subanen demonstrate that traditional governance is not obsolete. Rather, it is dynamic and enduring. Their system preserves harmony, respects nature, safeguards sacred sites, and maintains social cohesion, proving that ancestral methods of leadership remain highly relevant. The coexistence of Subanen governance and Philippine law is a testament to the community's resilience, wisdom, and commitment to both continuity and adaptation. It underscores a fundamental principle. Leadership is effective when it integrates morality, culture, spirituality, and practical problem solving. The role of the Timuay extends far beyond ceremonial appearances or occasional dispute resolution. His leadership is woven into the daily life of the Subanen community. From the moment the sun rises over the rice fields and forests of the Zamboanga Peninsula, the Timuay's responsibilities touch every facet of social, spiritual, and environmental life. He acts simultaneously as a peacemaker, mediator, cultural custodian, land guardian, and representative, ensuring that the community functions harmoniously, traditions are respected, and resources are managed sustainably. Understanding his daily routine provides insight into how leadership and governance are embodied through consistent action, relationship building, and moral guidance. One of the Timuay's central duties is conflict mediation. Disputes over land, water, or family obligations arise regularly, and the Timuay is expected to respond promptly. If a disagreement occurs between families over access to a shared irrigation channel, for example, the Timuay calls a gathering that includes the families involved, elders, and sometimes the Balian if the dispute carries spiritual significance. Through careful listening, observation of customary laws, Subanen, and empathetic negotiation, he proposes solutions that satisfy all parties. The resolution may involve alternating use of the channel, providing compensation, ongari, or performing a reconciliation ritual, pamalugu, to restore relationships. Such actions exemplify the Subanen principle that governance is not about dominance, but about maintaining social cohesion and communal harmony. In addition to mediation, the Timuay oversees land and resource management. He monitors farming activities, hunting schedules, and forest use, ensuring that practices are sustainable and equitable. For example, during the planting season, he may assign plots of land to families according to historical claims, labor contribution, or rotation schedules. Sacred sites, rivers, and forests are monitored for adherence to traditional protections, and any encroachment or misuse is addressed immediately. In this way, the Timuay safeguards both the ecological and spiritual integrity of the community's territory. His guidance ensures that natural resources are preserved for future generations, reflecting a profound understanding of intergenerational responsibility and environmental stewardship. Another vital aspect of the Timuay's daily role is collaboration with the Council of Elders. The elders provide wisdom, historical context, and interpretation of customary laws, which the Timuay uses to make informed decisions. Regular consultations ensure that governance remains collective and participatory, with decisions grounded in tradition rather than arbitrary authority. When complex disputes arise, such as contested land boundaries or interclan disagreements, the elders' guidance is essential for balancing fairness, precedent, and community needs. The Timuay relies on their knowledge not only to mediate conflicts, but also to maintain legitimacy and moral authority among the people. The Timuay also engages with the Balian to integrate spiritual guidance into daily governance. Agricultural rituals, health interventions, and reconciliation ceremonies are often coordinated to maintain harmony between humans, nature, and the spirit world. For example, if a community experiences poor harvests or unusual misfortune, the Timuay consults the Balian to determine whether spiritual offenses, such as disrespecting sacred sites or ancestors, might be responsible. Rituals are then performed to restore balance, reinforce ethical behavior, and ensure that the community remains spiritually aligned with ancestral expectations. These practices illustrate that the Timuay's leadership is deeply holistic, combining social, environmental, and spiritual responsibilities in a seamless daily routine. Furthermore, the Timuay acts as a representative and diplomat, interacting with neighboring villages and outsiders. He negotiates agreements, mediates inter-village disputes, and advocates for Subanen rights in external forums. Whether handling shared hunting grounds, river access, or external development proposals, the Timuay embodies the community's values of fairness, respect, and collective welfare. His daily decisions reinforce cultural identity, maintain peace, and protect both communal and sacred resources. The daily responsibilities of the Timuay are best understood through real-life examples, which highlight how Subanen governance blends restorative justice, cultural values, and environmental stewardship. One common scenario involves family disputes over land or resources. In Subanen villages, rice fields, rivers, and forested areas are carefully managed under the supervision of the Timuay. Conflicts naturally arise when families or clans claim overlapping rights to these resources. Unlike modern legal systems, where disputes are often resolved through rigid laws or punitive measures, the Timuay relies on dialogue, precedent, and communal values to achieve mutually agreeable solutions. For instance, imagine two families disputing ownership of a riverbank used for irrigation. One family claims it has traditionally farmed this area, while the other argues that recent labor contributions give them the right to use it. The Timuay convenes a community gathering, inviting elders, representatives from both families, and sometimes the Balian if spiritual issues are implicated. Each side presents its case, and the elders consult the Subanen and historical records of land use. After careful deliberation, the Timuay might implement a rotational arrangement. Family A uses the riverbank during the planting season, while Family B has access during the next. To reinforce the resolution, a reconciliation ritual, Pamalugu, may be conducted, often led by the Balian, with offerings to ancestors and spirits. This ensures that both social and spiritual harmony are restored, preventing lingering resentment. Another scenario involved inter-family obligations, such as the payment of the bandy or bride price. Suppose a young man marries, but cannot immediately fulfill the customary payment. In a modern legal system, this might be viewed as a private family matter or lead to civil complaints. In Subanen practice, however, the Timuay and Council of Elders step in as mediators. They negotiate a compromise that respects tradition and the well-being of all parties. For example, the family might agree to provide partial payment immediately, often in livestock or agricultural products, and complete the balance after the next harvest. This solution not only upholds cultural norms, but also preserves relationships between families and clans, ensuring ongoing social cohesion. Disputes between villages provide another illustrative example. Consider two Subanen settlements claiming the same forested hunting ground. Without intervention, competition could escalate in a violent conflict. The Timuay Labi, acting as supreme leader, convenes the Timuays and elders from both villages. After days of dialogue and negotiation, a solution is reached. Village A hunts during the rainy season, while Village B hunts during the dry season. The agreement is formalized through a ritual oath, witnessed by both communities and often accompanied by offerings and prayers led by the Balian. This ensures that the settlement is spiritually and socially binding, reducing the likelihood of future disputes. Environmental stewardship is also a critical aspect of mediation. Suppose an individual or family inadvertently begins clearing forest land too close to a sacred site. The Timuay intervenes promptly, explaining the cultural and spiritual importance of the site and guiding the community toward restoration. The Balian may conduct rituals to cleanse the area and reconcile the spirits, while the offender provides labor or resources to repair damage and contribute to communal welfare. This process not only prevents ecological degradation, but reinforces the interconnectedness of land, spirituality, and social responsibility in Subanen governance. Through these examples, it becomes clear that the Timuay's leadership is holistic and deeply relational. Decisions are informed by tradition, tempered with fairness, and integrated with spiritual guidance. Governance is not a set of abstract rules, but a living practice that maintains harmony across social, ecological, and spiritual realms. Each resolution strengthens trust, reinforces cultural identity, and preserves the ancestral legacy for future generations. The Subanen governance system extends beyond mediation and resource management to encompass rituals and ceremonies that guide the community through seasonal cycles, agricultural activities, and spiritual observances. The Timuay, in collaboration with the Council of Elders and the Balian, ensures that these events are conducted according to ancestral traditions, maintaining harmony among humans, the environment, and the spirit world. These practices reveal that Subanen leadership is not merely administrative but holistic, integrating social, ecological, and spiritual responsibilities into daily and seasonal life. One of the most important seasonal rituals is the planting ceremony, which marks the beginning of the agricultural cycle. Before sowing seeds, the Balian, guided by the Timuay, performs prayers and offerings to appease spirits associated with the land, rivers, and forests. The ritual may include the sacrifice of chickens, offerings of rice and betel nut, and chanting sacred prayers that call for abundant harvests and protection from natural calamities. During this ceremony, the Timuay oversees the allocation of plots, ensures fairness among families, and reminds the community of their responsibility to maintain the land and respect sacred sites. By blending spiritual practice with practical governance, the ceremony reinforces the interdependence of people, land, and tradition. The Harvest Festival is another crucial event, celebrating the successful yield of crops while acknowledging the collective effort of the community. The Timuay and elders supervise the distribution of resources, ensuring that all families benefit and that any agreements regarding shared land or labor are honored. Rituals led by the Balian offer gratitude to ancestral spirits for their protection and blessings, while the community participates in communal feasts and dances that strengthen social bonds. This integration of ritual, resource management, and communal celebration demonstrates how leadership in Subanen culture transcends administrative authority, emphasizing moral guidance, cultural continuity, and social cohesion. Additionally, the Timuay plays a central role in conflict prevention during seasonal changes. For example, the transition from the dry to rainy season often necessitates decisions about river use, forest hunting schedules, and crop rotation. The Timuay, elders, and Balian collectively determine schedules, mediate potential disputes, and guide ritual offerings that ensure spiritual balance. These measures prevent tensions that could arise from resource scarcity or overlapping claims, showing how governance is proactive rather than reactive. By embedding leadership within the rhythms of nature, the Subanen ensure that human activity harmonizes with ecological cycles and ancestral wisdom. Health and communal well-being are also addressed through rituals guided by the Timuay and Balian. When epidemics, poor harvests, or unexplained illnesses occur, ceremonies are performed to seek spiritual guidance, cleanse affected areas, and reconcile with ancestral spirits. The Timuay's role is to coordinate these efforts, organize community participation, and ensure that the principles of fairness, responsibility, and respect for tradition are observed. The combination of spiritual intervention, communal involvement, and ethical oversight demonstrates a comprehensive model of governance, where leadership safeguards both physical and metaphysical well-being. Finally, the Timuay ensures that educational and cultural transmission occurs during these seasonal events. Elders and Balian instruct younger generations on ancestral laws, ritual protocols, and ecological stewardship, reinforcing cultural identity and preparing future leaders. By participating in ceremonies, youth learn how governance, spirituality, and community responsibility intersect, preserving the Subanen worldview and ensuring continuity across generations. Leadership, therefore, is experienced not only through decision-making, but through active involvement in daily and seasonal life, making governance a living, participatory practice rather than a static authority. Through these seasonal rituals and ceremonies, the Timuay exemplifies a leadership model that is dynamic, holistic, and deeply connected to both people and land. Governance is inseparable from culture, spirituality, and ecology, illustrating that the Subanen system sustains harmony reinforces ethical behavior, and nurtures communal resilience. In the Subanen governance system, the Balian holds a position of profound spiritual significance, complementing the political and administrative authority of the Timuay and the Timuay Labi. While the Timuay focuses on dispute resolution, land management, and community organization, the Balian ensures that the spiritual and moral dimensions of life are respected, maintained, and harmonized with daily social practices. The Balian's influence extends across health, agriculture, conflict reconciliation, and cultural education, demonstrating the holistic integration of governance and spirituality in Subanen society. One of the primary responsibilities of the Balian is ritual healing and reconciliation. The Subanen believe that misfortunes, ranging from illness to failed harvests, may arise from spiritual imbalance or ancestral displeasure. When a family experiences repeated misfortune, the Timuay consults the Balian to identify potential causes, such as unintentional disrespect towards sacred sites or ancestors. The Balian then organizes Pamaluga rituals, which may involve offerings of chickens, rice, betel nuts, and other symbolic items. Through chants, prayers, and ceremonial actions, the Balian mediates reconciliation between the human community and the spirit world. These rituals are not merely symbolic. They restore social trust, emotional balance, and communal cohesion, allowing the community to move forward harmoniously. The Balian also plays a central role in agricultural ceremonies, which are crucial for sustaining the community's livelihood. Before planting or harvesting, rituals are performed to seek blessings from spirits for a bountiful yield and protection from natural calamities. These ceremonies reinforce ecological stewardship by reminding the community of the sacredness of land, forests, rivers, and wildlife. For instance, certain areas of the forest may be off limits for hunting or logging because they are spiritually protected. The Balian ensures that these rules are respected and often mediates disputes when conflicts arise over resource use. By guiding spiritual observances, the Balian ensures that governance, ecology, and culture operate in mutual harmony. Another key function of the Balian is mediating social disputes with spiritual oversight. While the Timuay and elders provide advice and apply customary laws, the Balian ensures that agreements are spiritually recognized, enhancing their moral authority. For example, if a theft or marital dispute occurs, the resolution may involve restitution, ongoi, and a reconciliation ritual to cleanse the offended party spiritually. The Balian's role guarantees that reconciliation is complete, leaving no lingering resentment that could disrupt communal harmony. In this way, spiritual leadership reinforces the restorative justice principles central to Subanen governance. The Balian also serves as a cultural educator, passing down ancestral knowledge, ethical practices, and ritual protocols to younger generations. During communal gatherings, seasonal ceremonies, or educational sessions, the Balian teaches the youth about moral responsibilities, ecological ethics, and the spiritual importance of ancestral laws. This transmission of knowledge ensures continuity of Subanen cultural identity and prepares future leaders to uphold the delicate balance between governance, spirituality, and community life. The role is both educational and preventative, as young people learn to respect traditions and maintain social and spiritual equilibrium. Furthermore, the Balian works in close coordination with the Timuay and Timuay Labi to ensure that decisions affecting multiple villages respect spiritual laws. For instance, when inter-village agreements are negotiated regarding hunting grounds or shared resources, the Balian may perform ceremonies to sanctify the pact and reinforce its binding nature. This spiritual validation strengthens compliance, reduces potential conflicts, and emphasizes that governance is not only political, but deeply rooted in ethical and cultural responsibility. Through these functions, the Balian exemplifies how spiritual leadership is integral to Subanen governance, ensuring that ethical conduct, cultural preservation, and ecological stewardship are maintained alongside social order. Governance is not limited to the tangible or material realm, but extends into moral and spiritual domains, creating a holistic system in which leaders guide their communities in harmony with both human and ancestral laws. The role of the Balian in Subanen society is best understood through the rituals and ceremonies they perform, which are deeply intertwined with daily life, spiritual well-being, and communal harmony. These rituals are not merely symbolic. They serve practical, social, and ecological purposes, demonstrating the holistic nature of Subanen governance. The Balian addresses challenges ranging from illness and poor harvest to family disputes and ecological imbalance, integrating spiritual guidance with moral and social responsibility. One of the most common rituals led by the Balian is the healing ceremony. When a member of the community falls ill, especially with ailments not explained by visible causes, the illness is often attributed to spiritual disturbance or ancestral displeasure. The Timuay consults the Balian, who determines the appropriate ritual to restore balance. This may include offerings of chickens, rice, betel nut, or other symbolic items, chants invoking ancestral spirits, and prayers asking forgiveness or protection. During the ritual, the afflicted individual and their family actively participate, which reinforces social bonds and reassures the community that the misfortune is being addressed collectively. The ceremony concludes with guidance on moral or behavioral corrections, ensuring that illness is not only treated spiritually, but also serves as a reminder to uphold tradition and communal ethics. Another critical function of the Balian is conducting reconciliation rituals following conflicts or offenses. For instance, if a theft occurs or a family fails to meet customary obligations, such as the bandi, bride price, the Balian facilitates a pamaluga ceremony. Both parties make offerings and perform symbolic acts of restitution, such as returning stolen items or providing compensation, ongui. Through chants and blessings, the Balian mediates forgiveness, ensuring that resentment does not linger and that relationships are fully restored. Education and cultural transmission are also embedded within these rituals. Young community members observe and participate, learning sacred chants, offerings, and the ethical principles underlying each ceremony. They witness firsthand how spirituality, social responsibility, and ecological stewardship converge, preparing the next generation to uphold the Subanen way of life. The Balian, therefore, is not only a spiritual guide, but also a teacher, ensuring continuity of both tradition and governance. Through healing, reconciliation, and agricultural ceremonies, the Balian exemplifies the integration of spirituality into leadership, complementing the Timuay's political authority. Governance in Subanen society is holistic. Decisions and rituals reinforce social harmony, preserve culture, and protect the environment. Spiritual guidance, far from being separate from daily life, is central to the functioning of the community, ensuring that ethics, law, and ecology operate in a seamless and enduring system of balance. This spiritual endorsement strengthens the social resolution provided by the Timuay and Council of Elders, illustrating how Subanen justice emphasizes restoration over punishment. Agricultural rituals also highlight the Balian's crucial role. Before planting, harvesting, or hunting, ceremonies are performed to seek blessings from spirits, ask for protection, and ensure ecological balance. Sacred forests, rivers, and hunting grounds are respected, and the Balian reminds the community of ancestral laws regarding sustainable resource use. For example, if a family inadvertently clears a sacred grove or hunts near a protected river, The Balian may lead a ritual offering and cleansing to appease the spirits, reinforcing the moral and spiritual significance of ecological stewardship. These ceremonies prevent environmental degradation while maintaining spiritual harmony, showing that governance, morality, and ecology are inseparable in Subanen culture. The Balian also addresses communal crises, such as repeated crop failure, flooding, or social unrest. In such cases, rituals involve the broader community, including elders, Timuay, and villagers, who collectively offer prayers, perform symbolic acts, and reaffirm their commitment to ancestral laws. This participatory approach strengthens social cohesion, ensuring that everyone shares responsibility for both causes and solutions. By involving the entire community, the Balian transforms crises into opportunities for learning, unity, and moral reflection. The Balian performs a Pamaluga ritual to cleanse the area and reconcile the community with the spirits. Offerings of rice, betel nut, or livestock, combined with prayers and chants, serve as a spiritual restoration, reinforcing that violations of sacred land are both social and moral transgressions. By integrating ritual into governance, the Balian ensures that the community internalizes ethical responsibilities and respects ecological boundaries. The Council of Elders supports both the Timuay and Balian by interpreting customary laws, mediating disputes, and guiding decisions to align with tradition. They provide historical context, identify precedent, and ensure that any settlement or resolution honors both human and spiritual laws. For instance, when a sacred river is at risk of overuse or pollution, the elders may advise rotational access, collective labor contributions, or rituals to appease the river spirits. These decisions combine ecological sustainability with ethical governance, preventing conflicts while reinforcing communal respect for sacred sites. Coordination among the Timuay, elders, and Balian also extends to inter-village disputes over sacred territories. Forests, rivers, or hunting grounds may span multiple communities, making joint stewardship essential. The Timuay Labi may convene meetings with Timuays and elders from neighboring villages, negotiating rotational use, resource sharing, and ceremonial obligations. The Balian sanctifies these agreements through rituals and offerings, creating a spiritual and social guarantee that the settlements respect the terms. Such practices illustrate that Subanen governance is proactive, resolving potential conflicts before they escalate while maintaining harmony with nature and tradition. These practices demonstrate a comprehensive model of governance in which sacred land protection is central. Leadership is exercised not only through rules and enforcement, but through moral persuasion, ritual observance. The governance of sacred land among the Subanen people represents one of the clearest intersections of political authority, spiritual guidance, and environmental stewardship. Sacred sites, including ancestral burial grounds, rivers, forests, and groves, are considered inviolable, not only for their ecological value, but also for their spiritual significance. Protecting these areas requires the coordinated efforts of the Timuay, the Council of Elders, and the Balian, reflecting a governance system in which law, morality, and ritual are inseparably intertwined. This approach demonstrates that leadership is both holistic and preventative, safeguarding the community's resources, spiritual well-being, and cultural identity for future generations. The Timuay, as the political leader, oversees the regulation of sacred land usage. He ensures that families and individuals do not exploit these areas for personal gain. For example, if a family wishes to clear part of a forest near a burial site for farming, the Timuay intervenes, explaining the spiritual importance and potential consequences of disrespecting the land. Together with the Council of Elders, he consults historical records and customary laws, Subanen, to determine permissible activities. The resolution may involve assigning alternative areas for cultivation or requiring community-based labor contributions to repair and protect the sacred site. In all decisions, the Timuay balances fairness, cultural preservation, and ecological responsibility, demonstrating how governance is exercised with both ethical and practical considerations. The Balian's role in protecting sacred land is equally critical. While the Timuay enforces social and legal norms, the Balian ensures that the spiritual integrity of the site is maintained. If human activities have inadvertently offended ancestral spirits, such as cutting a sacred tree or disturbing a burial ground, and community engagement, the integration of political authority, spiritual oversight, and environmental stewardship ensures that the Subanen preserve both their cultural identity and their ecological heritage. Sacred land becomes a living symbol of communal values, ancestral respect, and sustainable governance. A defining feature of Subanen governance is its strong emphasis on intergenerational responsibility, ensuring that leadership, cultural knowledge, and ethical practices are transmitted to future generations. The Timuay Labi, Council of Elders, and Balian actively mentor younger members of the community, providing them with the tools to uphold social harmony, spiritual balance, and environmental stewardship. This transmission of knowledge is not limited to formal instruction. It occurs through participation in daily governance, ceremonial activities, dispute resolution, and land management practices, embedding lessons in lived experience. By preparing youth for future leadership, the Subanen system ensures continuity, resilience, and cultural preservation. From an early age, children are introduced to the principles of social responsibility and restorative justice. They observe how disputes over land, water, or family obligations are mediated by the Timuay and elders, witnessing firsthand the importance of dialogue, fairness, and reconciliation. For instance, when two families contest the use of a rice field, young observers learn how the Timuay applies the Subanen to balance competing claims, ensures compensation, ongari, is provided, and participates in ritual reconciliation, pamalugu, to restore relationships. These experiences teach the youth that leadership is not about asserting power, but about restoring harmony, respecting tradition, and upholding communal values. Education also extends to spiritual and cultural knowledge. The Balian instructs young people in ritual practices, prayers, offerings, and ethical principles tied to the ancestral spirits. During planting or harvest ceremonies, children participate in offerings, learn chants, and understand the sacred rules governing land use. They observe how the Balian reconciles spiritual imbalances, heals the sick, and guides communal decision-making, internalizing the idea that spiritual oversight is inseparable from social governance. This early immersion ensures that the next generation understands the moral and ecological foundations of leadership. The Council of Elders contributes to intergenerational learning by mentoring youth in customary law, negotiation skills, and ethical reasoning. Young adults may accompany elders during mediation sessions, observing how historical precedents, communal consensus, and fairness are applied in real-life disputes. They learn the importance of maintaining balance between individual interests and collective welfare, a core principle of Subanen governance. Elders also emphasize the protection of sacred land, demonstrating how ethical stewardship and sustainable resource management are central to the community's survival. Through these experiences, you've gained practical knowledge that combines political, moral, and ecological wisdom. Intergenerational responsibilities also include training in leadership roles. Aspiring leaders, often selected based on lineage, aptitude, or community respect, are gradually entrusted with small responsibilities under the supervision of the Timuay or Timuay Labi. This apprenticeship may involve overseeing minor disputes, organizing community work, or assisting in rituals. Over time, they learn to integrate legal, moral, and spiritual guidance into decision-making, ensuring a smooth transition of authority. By doing so, the Subanen maintains stable leadership and cultural continuity, avoiding sudden power vacuums or erosion of traditional knowledge. Finally, intergenerational responsibilities emphasize collective memory and ancestral reverence. Stories, oral histories, and precedents are shared during communal gatherings, linking young people to their ancestors' wisdom. Sacred sites, forests, and rivers serve as living classrooms where youth observe ecological balance, spiritual rituals, and ethical governance in action. This approach ensures that knowledge is experiential, participatory, and deeply internalized, producing future leaders who can uphold harmony, protect the land, and maintain the cultural identity of the Subanen people. Through intergenerational mentorship, Subanen governance demonstrates its resilience and adaptability. By combining practical leadership, spiritual guidance, and cultural education, the system ensures that each generation inherits not only authority, but also moral responsibility, ecological awareness, and communal loyalty, sustaining the Subanen way of life for centuries to come. Youth participation is a cornerstone of Subanen governance, ensuring that the principles of leadership, ethical responsibility, and cultural preservation are practically internalized from an early age. Rather than learning solely through observation, young members of the community are actively engaged in governance processes, rituals, and ecological management. This hands-on involvement teaches them the intricate balance between social harmony, spiritual guidance, and resource stewardship, providing practical experience that prepares them to assume future leadership roles with confidence, wisdom, and moral clarity. One of the primary avenues for youth involvement is assisting the Timuay and elders in dispute resolution. Young adults may accompany the Timuay during meetings involving family conflicts over land, water, or labor contributions. They observe how the Timuay consults the Council of Elders, interprets customary laws, Gukum Subanen, and proposes restorative solutions. For instance, in a case where two families contest ownership of a rice plot, youth witnesses learn how the Timuay balances historical claims, rotational farming schedules, and compensation, ongari, to ensure fairness. Through repeated exposure to mediation processes, youth internalize values such as impartiality, empathy, and respect for tradition, learning that effective governance is rooted in restoring harmony rather than asserting dominance. Another avenue for engagement is participation in seasonal and spiritual rituals. During planting, harvest, and reconciliation ceremonies, youth assist the Balian in preparing offerings, chanting prayers, and observing ritual protocols. This participation is not symbolic alone. It provides a practical education in spiritual leadership, ethical responsibility, and ecological ethics. For example, when a sacred forest is affected by human activity, the youth observe how the Balian leads a Pamaluga ritual to reconcile the spirits while the Timuay enforces protective measures. By participating in these ceremonies, they understand the inseparable relationship between spiritual health, ecological stewardship, and social governance. Youth also gain leadership skills through apprenticeship programs under the supervision of the Timuay or Timuay Labi. Aspiring leaders are entrusted with smaller responsibilities such as overseeing minor disputes, organizing communal work projects, or coordinating ritual activities. These experiences cultivate practical skills in negotiation, planning, and moral reasoning. Over time, apprentices gradually assume more complex duties, preparing them for eventual leadership positions within the community. This approach ensures that succession is intentional, knowledgeable, and ethically grounded, preventing abrupt power vacuums and preserving the integrity of Subanen governance. Environmental stewardship is another key area where youth participation is emphasized. Young members learn to monitor forests, rivers, and agricultural lands, guided by the Timuay elders. They are taught to respect sacred areas, enforce rotational use of resources, and participate in rituals that honor ancestral ecological principles. This education fosters a deep sense of responsibility for the land, highlighting the Subanen belief that sustainability and spirituality are interconnected, and that proper governance includes protecting both human and environmental welfare. Finally, youth involvement reinforces cultural continuity and moral development. By actively participating in governance, rituals, and environmental oversight, young members internalize the ethical frameworks that define Subanen society. They learn to respect elders, collaborate with peers, uphold traditions, and approach conflicts with restorative solutions. Through experiential learning, acknowledging that the Subanen approach prioritizes restoration and social harmony over punitive measures. For instance, a man who steals livestock may be required to return the property with additional compensation and participate in a cleansing ritual, resolving the issue without imprisonment while maintaining the ethical principles of Subanen society. This coexistence demonstrates that traditional and formal legal systems can complement rather than contradict one another. The Timuay Labi also plays a critical role in interfacing with broader political institutions. Representing multiple Subanen communities, the Timuay Labi may participate in dialogues with regional or national government agencies to advocate for ancestral land rights, resource management, and cultural preservation. Through these interactions, the Subanen assert their customary authority while respecting national frameworks, ensuring that ancestral lands remain protected, sacred sites are preserved, and community practices are legally recognized. This dual engagement strengthens both cultural identity and legal recognition, providing a robust defense against encroachment or exploitation. Spiritual governance under the Balian continues to complement these modern engagements. Rituals, offerings, and reconciliation ceremonies are maintained to ensure that ancestral guidance and ethical principles remain central to decision-making, even when modern legal frameworks are involved. For example, land agreements or inter-village resource sharing arrangements may be formalized under Philippine law, but are simultaneously blessed and spiritually sanctioned through Balian-led ceremonies. This dual recognition reinforces compliance and moral commitment, illustrating that Subanen governance is both practical and spiritually anchored. Youth are prepared to continue the legacy of the Timuay, Council of Elders, and Balian, ensuring that the social, spiritual, and ecological principles of the Subanen people endure for generations to come. The Subanen governance system, though ancient and deeply rooted in tradition, does not exist in isolation from the modern Philippine legal framework. Today, the Timuay, Council of Elders, Timuay Labi, and Balian operate alongside formal government structures, creating a dual system where ancestral customs and national laws coexist. This integration illustrates the adaptability and resilience of Subanen governance, highlighting how traditional leadership can preserve cultural identity, maintain social harmony, and safeguard ancestral lands while complying with contemporary legal requirements. In practice, the Timuay often coordinates with local government units, LGUs, to manage issues that affect ancestral territories, such as development projects, environmental regulations, and land disputes. For example, if a private company proposes infrastructure construction near a Subanen settlement, the Timuay and elders assess the proposal from both a customary and legal perspective. Sacred sites, ecological balance, and communal rights are carefully considered, while national laws governing land use and permits are also taken into account. By bridging traditional governance with statutory requirements, the Subanen ensure that decisions protect both community welfare and ancestral heritage without violating national regulations. Restorative justice practices under the Gookum Subanen also demonstrate this integration. Cases like theft, domestic disputes, or minor property damage may initially be addressed within the community, using compensation, ongari, and reconciliation, pamalugu. Modern authorities often respect these resolutions, particularly when the parties involved accept the outcome. Education of the youth also bridges tradition and modernity. Young Subanen are taught both ancestral laws and the principles of Philippine law, preparing them to navigate a world where cultural identity and legal obligations coexist. Through participation in rituals, mediation, land management, and interactions with government structures, they develop practical wisdom, cultural literacy, and civic responsibility, ensuring that future leaders can uphold the community's values while engaging effectively with contemporary society. Through these measures, the Subanen governance system demonstrates remarkable adaptability and resilience. By integrating ancestral practices with modern legal frameworks, the community preserves cultural heritage, maintains social harmony, and safeguards natural and sacred resources. This integration exemplifies a governance model that is holistic, flexible, and deeply rooted in both ethics and practicality, showing that traditional authority can thrive in a modern legal context while continuing to guide the Subanen people toward peace, sustainability, and cultural continuity. Understanding how the Subanen governance system functions alongside modern Philippine law is best illustrated through real-world case studies. These examples highlight how traditional leadership, ancestral customs, and formal legal frameworks converge to resolve disputes, protect land, and maintain social harmony. By examining specific instances, we can see the practical application of the Timuay, Council of Elders, Timuay Labi, and Balian working together with government authorities, demonstrating the adaptability, resilience, and enduring relevance of Subanen governance. One illustrative case involves land rights and development projects. In a Subanen village within the Sambuanga Peninsula, a private company sought to acquire a portion of forest land for commercial logging. The land, however, was considered ancestral domain, Balian, and included sacred sites and burial grounds. The Timuay, supported by the Council of Elders, immediately convened the community to review the situation. They documented historical land use, consulted ancestral oral histories, and conducted spiritual assessments with the Balian to ensure the sacredness of the area was fully considered. The Timuay Labi then represented the community in negotiations with local government units, LGUs, and national agencies. Legal arguments were made based on the Indigenous Peoples' Rights Act, IPRA, of 1997, which recognizes ancestral domains and the rights of indigenous communities. Simultaneously, the Balian conducted a Pamalugu ritual to spiritually protect the land, ensuring the ancestors' guidance was acknowledged in the negotiations. The outcome was a shared resource agreement. The company could engage in limited, sustainable harvesting under strict oversight, while the sacred areas remained untouched and the community retained traditional use rights. This case exemplifies how Subanen leadership blends political negotiation, legal advocacy, and spiritual guidance to achieve outcomes that protect both culture and ecology. Another case study involves inter-family disputes over agricultural land, which could escalate without timely mediation. In one village, two families contested ownership of a rice field that had been in rotation among the families for generations. While modern courts could have been approached to settle the matter, the families preferred resolution within the community. The Timuay convened a meeting with the Council of Elders, Balian, and the disputing families. Historical use, labor contributions, and ancestral claims were examined. The Timuay proposed a rotational farming schedule, while the Balian conducted a reconciliation ritual to restore goodwill. Compensation, ongari, was agreed upon, ensuring that both parties felt respected and the community's social cohesion remained intact. Local government officials acknowledged the resolution, illustrating that Subanen restorative justice is recognized as legitimate and effective. A third example focuses on natural resource management and inter-village agreements. Two Subanen settlements claimed overlapping hunting grounds in a forest. The potential for conflict was high, as these resources were essential for sustenance. The Timuay Labi facilitated a joint council of Timuays, elders, and Balian representatives from both communities. They negotiated seasonal hunting rotations, established shared responsibilities for forest conservation, and formalized the agreement with both a legal memorandum recognized by LGUs and a ritual oath led by the Balian. This dual approach ensured compliance through both moral obligation and legal recognition, preventing conflict while safeguarding resources and cultural practices. These case studies illustrate the holistic nature of Subanen governance, where political authority, spiritual oversight, and legal frameworks operate in tandem. The Timuay, elders, and Balian provide mediation, guidance, and ritual validation, while modern authorities ensure formal recognition and compliance. Through collaboration, Subanen communities maintain ancestral rights, resolve disputes peacefully, and protect both the environment and sacred sites, demonstrating that traditional governance is not only compatible with modern law, but enhances social cohesion and cultural resilience. These case studies illustrate the holistic nature of Subanen governance, where political authority, spiritual oversight, and legal frameworks operate in tandem. The Timuay, elders, and Balian provide mediation, guidance, and ritual validation, while modern authorities ensure formal recognition and compliance. Through collaboration, Subanen communities maintain ancestral rights, resolve disputes peacefully, and protect both the environment and sacred sites, demonstrating that traditional governance is not only compatible with modern law, but enhances social cohesion and cultural resilience. Youth involvement complements this framework by learning through active participation in governance, mediation, and ritual activities. As apprentices to the Timuay, Balian, or elders, young men and women observe dispute resolution processes, participate in ceremonial offerings, and assist in monitoring ecological resources such as sacred forests and rivers. For example, youth may help organize a reconciliation ritual, Pamalugu, after a conflict or participate in rotational agricultural management, learning both responsibility and ethical decision-making. This hands-on experience equips them with the knowledge and skills needed to assume future leadership roles, ensuring that cultural and legal principles are internalized rather than merely observed. Women also serve as custodians of oral history, traditions, and customary laws. Through storytelling, they educate the youth about ancestral practices, ethical norms, and spiritual beliefs, reinforcing the values that underpin Subanen governance. By actively engaging in education and mentorship, women ensure that the next generation is well-versed in both cultural identity and ethical responsibility. Their role is particularly important in preserving knowledge of sacred sites, ecological practices, and communal obligations, bridging the gap between ritual, governance, and everyday life. Youth and women often collaborate in community initiatives, such as forest conservation, river management, and agricultural planning. Guided by the Timuay and elders, they help enforce rotational resource use, monitor sacred areas, and participate in decision-making forums. This collaborative engagement ensures that governance is participatory and inclusive, reflecting the values of fairness, responsibility, and collective stewardship. Their active involvement also reinforces accountability, as decisions and rituals are validated not only by elders, but by a broad cross-section of the community. The Balian supports this system by performing rituals that sanctify the land and seek blessings from ancestral spirits. Before planting, offerings of rice, betel nut, and chickens may be made to ask for fertile soil, protection from pests, and harmony with nature. Sacred groves, rivers, and burial sites are strictly off-limits, and the Balian reminds the community of the spiritual consequences of violating these areas. By intertwining ritual with resource management, the Subanen ensure that land use is not only equitable, but morally and spiritually grounded. Resource sharing also extends to hunting and fishing grounds. The Timuay Labi and village leaders establish seasonal rotations to prevent overhunting, preserve wildlife, and avoid inter-village disputes. These rotations are negotiated with elders from neighboring settlements and are often formalized with ritual oaths led by the Balian. For example, one village may hunt during the rainy season while another takes the dry season, ensuring that resources are shared fairly. Compliance is strengthened through both moral obligation and spiritual accountability, demonstrating how traditional governance integrates ethics, ecology, and social order. Water management is another area governed through communal oversight. Rivers and streams are used for irrigation, fishing, and household needs. The Timuay ensures equitable access, while elders monitor usage and mediate disputes. Ritual offerings may be performed to honor river spirits, especially if water shortages or environmental changes occur. This practice reinforces the understanding that natural resources are communal gifts and that governance requires respect for both human needs and spiritual balance. The combined participation of women and youth enhances social cohesion and cultural resilience. By integrating diverse voices into governance, the Subanen system ensures that ethical, spiritual, and practical perspectives are represented. Decisions are enriched with collective wisdom. Rituals are performed with full community participation, and the continuity of traditional knowledge is guaranteed. Women and youth serve as both learners and teachers, ensuring that Subanen governance remains adaptive, inclusive, and deeply rooted in its ancestral principles. A central feature of Subanen governance is the equitable sharing and rotational use of land and resources, reflecting a deep understanding of social, ecological, and ethical responsibilities. This system, overseen by the Timuay, Council of Elders, and supported by the Balian, ensures that every family and clan has access to fertile fields, hunting grounds, and forest resources while protecting sacred sites and maintaining environmental sustainability. By combining moral principles, ritual observance, and practical management, the Subanen maintain a governance model that balances community welfare, ecological preservation, and cultural continuity. The Timuay coordinates the allocation of land for cultivation. Rotational farming schedules are established based on ancestral practices, historical use, and community needs. For instance, if a rice field has been used by one family for a season, the Timuay ensures that another family has access in the next planting cycle. This rotational system prevents overuse, allows the land to regenerate, and maintains fairness among families and clans. The Council of Elders documents agreements, advises on disputes, and ensures that allocations adhere to Gukum Subanen, reinforcing trust in the process and preventing conflicts. Families respect the system because it is rooted in both tradition and ethical obligation. The Subanen governance system extends beyond individual villages to manage conflicts between multiple settlements, demonstrating a remarkable level of coordination, diplomacy, and spiritual oversight. Inter-community disputes may arise over hunting grounds, forest resources, water rights, or sacred sites. Resolving such conflicts requires the combined authority of the Timuay Labi, the Council of Elders, and the Balian, illustrating how leadership, ethical guidance, and ritual practice are integrated to maintain peace, fairness, and long-term social cohesion. This system ensures that disputes are resolved without violence, fostering cooperation and shared responsibility among communities. When two or more villages have overlapping claims to resources, the Timuay Labi convenes a council that includes the Timuays and elders from all involved settlements. The council begins by identifying the sources of conflict, historical use patterns, ecological pressures, or misunderstandings of spiritual or ancestral laws. Each community presents its case, and elders provide context, interpreting customary laws, Subanen, to clarify rights and obligations. The goal is not to punish, but to restore harmony and ensure that agreements are fair, sustainable, and spiritually sanctioned. Rituals play a crucial role in these negotiations. The Balian performs ceremonies to sanctify the process, invoking ancestral spirits to witness the agreement and ensure compliance. Offerings of rice, chickens, betel nut, or other symbolic items are presented, and chants are performed to bless the settlements and request guidance for wise decision-making. These rituals reinforce the moral weight of the decisions, making it spiritually unacceptable for any party to violate the agreed terms. By intertwining ritual with negotiation, the Subanen system links ethical responsibility with social and environmental governance, reducing the likelihood of future disputes. The system of resource sharing and rotational use also incorporates intergenerational education. Youth are involved in monitoring fields, forests, and water sources, learning how to apply traditional knowledge, ethical principles, and practical skills. By participating in land allocation, rituals, and community discussions, they gain first-hand experience in balancing social fairness, environmental sustainability, and spiritual obligations. Women contribute by ensuring that family labor and resources are coordinated, while also mentoring children in ritual and practical responsibilities. Through these practices, Subanen governance demonstrates that equitable resource distribution is inseparable from cultural, ethical, and spiritual frameworks. By combining moral oversight, ancestral law, ritual observance, and practical management, the Timuay, elders, and Balian create a resilient system that sustains both people and the environment. The rotational use of land, hunting, and water resources exemplifies how Subanen leadership prioritizes harmony, fairness, and sustainability, ensuring that resources remain available for future generations while preserving social cohesion and cultural identity. One illustrative example involves two villages disputing hunting rights in a forest shared by both settlements. Both communities rely on the forest for sustenance, but overhunting and overlapping claims had caused tension. The Timuay Labi gathered the Timuays, elders, and Balian from both villages. Historical claims were examined, environmental sustainability was assessed, and spiritual guidance was sought through a cleansing and blessing ceremony. After careful deliberation, a seasonal rotation was agreed upon. Village A could hunt during the rainy season, while Village B hunted in the dry season. Ritual oaths were sworn, and the agreement was witnessed by elders, ensuring moral and spiritual accountability. This resolution prevented conflict, preserved resources, and maintained harmony across settlements. The Council of Elders also contributes to mediation and monitoring of inter-community agreements. They document decisions, advise on disputes, and ensure adherence to customs. If issues arise later, such as misuse of resources or violations of ritual protocols, the elders facilitate dialogue and recommend restorative measures, which may include compensation, ongaree, reconciliation ceremonies, or adjustments to rotational schedules. This ongoing oversight guarantees that agreements remain effective and that social cohesion is continuously reinforced. Youth and women from each community also participate in monitoring these agreements, learning practical governance skills, ecological stewardship, and ethical responsibility. By observing and assisting in inter-community negotiations, they gain first-hand experience in diplomacy, fairness, and collective problem-solving. Their involvement ensures continuity of knowledge, preparing the next generation to uphold inter-settlement harmony and respect for ancestral laws. Through the combined efforts of the Timuay Labi, elders, Balian, and active community members, the Subanen system demonstrates an extraordinary capacity for peaceful conflict resolution, integrating political, spiritual, and environmental governance. Agreements are respected because they are fair, morally grounded, and spiritually sanctioned, reflecting a society in which leadership prioritizes restoration, unity, and sustainability over punishment or domination. In Subanen society, governance is not limited to rules, dispute resolution, or resource management. It is deeply intertwined with spiritual and ceremonial life. Inter-community alliances are strengthened through rituals and shared ceremonies, which serve as both symbolic and practical instruments of cohesion. These events unify settlements, reinforce shared values, and create formal mechanisms for collaboration, ensuring that neighboring villages maintain mutual respect, cultural continuity, and ecological responsibility. The Timuay Labi, along with Timuay's Council of Elders, Balian, and active community members, orchestrates these ceremonies to foster solidarity, uphold customs, and maintain peace across Subanen territories. One major type of ritual involves shared agricultural ceremonies, which are conducted during planting or harvest seasons. When multiple villages share rivers, fields, or forested lands, these ceremonies allow communities to coordinate activities, seek blessings from ancestral spirits, and acknowledge their interdependence. Offerings such as chickens, betel nuts, rice, and other local produce are made to honor spirits and request abundance for all participating settlements. The Balian leads chants and prayers, while elders supervise the proper observance of rituals according to Gukum Subanen. Participation is inclusive. Men, women, and youth from all communities assist in preparation and ceremony, fostering a sense of shared responsibility and reinforcing social bonds across villages. Another key form of inter-community ritual is the Peace and Alliance Festival, organized after the resolution of disputes or at the beginning of important seasons. These festivals often include symbolic acts, such as ritual oaths, joint meals, dances, and public offerings, which formalize agreements reached during inter-village negotiations. For example, after a dispute over hunting grounds is settled by seasonal rotation, a ritual may be performed in which representatives from both villages swear an oath of compliance and communal respect, witnessed by elders and the Balian. This ceremony strengthens commitment to agreements and ensures that moral, social, and spiritual obligations are publicly recognized. Rituals also serve an educational function, particularly for youth. During inter-community ceremonies, young members observe negotiation processes, spiritual practices, and conflict resolution methods in action. They learn how rituals reinforce fairness, ethical responsibility, and the importance of consensus in decision-making. Women often teach younger girls how to prepare offerings, chant prayers, and participate in dances, while boys learn practical aspects such as managing communal resources, assisting in rituals, and understanding rotational schedules for land and hunting. Through these experiences, youth develop practical leadership skills, cultural literacy, and moral awareness, preparing them for future governance roles. Spiritual reconciliation rituals are also common when inter-community conflicts involve sacred sites or ancestral lands. If a sacred forest or burial ground is inadvertently affected by activities of neighboring villages, the Balian performs Pamaluga ceremonies to restore spiritual harmony. These ceremonies ensure that spirits are respected and that ethical principles governing land and resource use are reinforced. The Timuay and elders supervise compliance, offering guidance on restitution or adjustments to resource sharing schedules. Such ceremonies not only address immediate issues, but also strengthen long-term cooperation, demonstrating that Subanen governance is holistic, integrating moral, spiritual, and environmental dimensions. Through regular rituals, festivals, and ceremonies, Subanen settlements build enduring networks of trust and collaboration. The combined efforts of the Timuay Labi, Timuays, elders, Balian, women, and youth create a governance system where inter-community alliances are continually nurtured. These practices ensure that conflicts are minimized, sacred sites are respected, resources are shared sustainably, and cultural values are passed to younger generations. In essence, ceremonial life in Subanen society is not mere tradition. It is a vital tool of governance, peacekeeping, and social cohesion, reinforcing alliances and securing the continuity of both culture and community. The Subanen people face significant pressures from modernization, migration, commercial development, and national policies. Despite these external influences, their governance system, rituals, and educational practices work in tandem to preserve cultural identity, ancestral knowledge, and social cohesion. Leadership under the Timuay, Council of Elders, Timuay Labi, and Balian, coupled with the active participation of women and youth, creates a resilient framework that balances engagement with the wider world while protecting the Subanen way of life. This balance ensures that traditions remain meaningful, sacred sites are respected, and governance continues to reflect community values. One critical area of cultural preservation is language and oral history. The Subanen language is the primary medium for transmitting laws, rituals, stories, and historical knowledge. Elders and women play an essential role in educating the younger generation, teaching them not only vocabulary and grammar, but also the cultural meanings behind stories, proverbs, and songs. Through storytelling, myths, and genealogical narratives, youth learn about ancestral leaders, historical disputes, and resolutions, connecting them to the moral and ethical foundations of Subanen society. Language, in this context, becomes both a tool of communication and a pillar of cultural continuity, preserving values that cannot be codified in writing alone. Rituals also serve as instruments of identity reinforcement. Agricultural ceremonies, Pamaluga rituals, peace festivals, and offerings to ancestral spirits remind the community of shared responsibilities, spiritual principles, and social norms. Participation in these rituals teaches the youth that cultural identity is not abstract, but embedded in daily life, ecological stewardship, and ethical governance. The Balian's guidance ensures that these practices remain faithful to ancestral traditions, while the Timuay and Council of Elders supervise proper observance, demonstrating that governance and ritual are inseparable in maintaining social cohesion. Governance practices further reinforce identity by protecting ancestral lands and sacred sites. The Timuay regulates resource use, enforces rotational land access, and negotiates inter-community agreements that prevent encroachment or exploitation. Sacred forests, rivers, and burial grounds are safeguarded through both legal advocacy under Philippine law and spiritual oversight, ensuring that external pressures do not compromise cultural heritage. For example, when development projects are proposed, the Timuay and Timuay Labi advocate for the community's rights using ancestral documentation, historical evidence, and legal provisions while also conducting rituals to sanctify lands, reflecting a dual approach that combines modern law and traditional authority. Education and mentorship ensure that cultural resilience continues across generations. Youth observe governance, participate in rituals, and assist elders in the Balian, acquiring practical leadership skills, ethical understanding, and spiritual knowledge. Women contribute by teaching domestic customs, ritual preparation, and oral history, embedding cultural literacy in everyday life. This intergenerational transfer strengthens identity, ensuring that young Subanen can engage with the modern world without losing their ancestral roots. Moreover, inter-community collaborations and alliances bolster identity in the face of external pressures. Shared festivals, joint ceremonies, and coordinated resource management reinforce a sense of belonging and mutual responsibility among Subanen settlements. By collectively defending ancestral land, observing rituals, and adhering to traditional laws, communities maintain social cohesion, cultural pride, and spiritual continuity, even as they navigate contemporary challenges. Through this holistic system, combining governance, ritual, education, and land stewardship, the Subanen people successfully preserve their cultural identity amidst external influences. Authority is exercised with fairness and spiritual legitimacy. Rituals reinforce communal bonds, and youth and women are actively involved in sustaining traditions. This model demonstrates that culture, governance, and education are deeply interconnected, providing a resilient, adaptive, and ethical framework that allows the Subanen to thrive while protecting their heritage for future generations. While Subanen governance has proven remarkably resilient, contemporary challenges require adaptation to maintain harmony, cultural identity, and resource stewardship. Modern pressures such as climate change, population migration, technological influence, and national development projects pose significant threats to ancestral practices and environmental balance. Yet, the Subanen system demonstrates flexibility, integrating traditional authority, spiritual guidance, and community participation with modern tools and strategies to confront these challenges effectively. The Timuay, Council of Elders, Timuay Labi, and Balian play central roles in navigating these complex changes, ensuring that the community adapts without losing its cultural and ethical foundations. One pressing challenge is climate change, which affects agricultural cycles, water availability, and forest resources. Erratic rainfall patterns, prolonged dry seasons, and occasional flooding disrupt traditional planting and rotational land use schedules. To respond, the Timuay collaborates with elders and the Balian to adjust planting calendars, rotate lands differently, and perform rituals to seek ancestral guidance for ecological balance. Simultaneously, community members may incorporate modern agricultural techniques, such as soil conservation, irrigation management, and pest control, blending traditional wisdom with contemporary knowledge. This adaptive approach ensures that the community's food security, environmental stewardship, and cultural practices remain resilient. Migration and urbanization present another challenge. Younger members may leave for education or employment, creating gaps in labor and leadership succession. To address this, the Timuay and elders actively mentor youth before they leave, ensuring they understand the governance system, spiritual practices, and ethical responsibilities. Women and elders maintain continuity by preserving rituals, oral histories, and customary laws during absences. Moreover, returning youth bring new skills, perspectives, and knowledge, which are integrated into the community's governance and resource management. fostering both continuity and innovation. Migration and urbanization present another challenge. Younger members may leave for education or employment, creating gaps in labor and leadership succession. To address this, the Timuay and elders actively mentor youth before they leave, ensuring they understand the governance system, spiritual practices, and ethical responsibilities. Women and elders maintain continuity by preserving rituals, oral histories, and customary laws during absences. Moreover, returning youth bring new skills, perspectives, and knowledge, which are integrated into the community's governance and resource management, fostering both continuity and innovation. Development projects, such as road construction, mining, or commercial agriculture, often threaten ancestral lands and sacred sites. The Timuay Labi, supported by elders and the Council of Elders, engages with government authorities and developers using a dual approach: legal advocacy under Philippine law, including the Indigenous Peoples' Rights Act, IPRA, and ritual observance led by the Balian to protect ancestral spirits and sacred spaces. For example, if a development project encroaches on a sacred forest, negotiations may include formal agreements to restrict access, combined with cleansing rituals to restore spiritual balance. This dual strategy demonstrates the integration of traditional governance, spiritual authority, and modern legal frameworks. That was an incredible journey into Subanen governance and culture. Today, we learned how the Timuay leads with wisdom, the elders guide ethically, rituals maintain harmony, and women and youth ensure continuity. We saw how land, resources, and spirits are respected, showing that governance is more than rules. It's about community, ethics, and balance with nature. Remember, the moral of the story is that leadership is not about power, but about restoring harmony and protecting both people on the land. If you enjoyed this journey into Subanen history, subscribe to History Teller YT for more amazing stories from our past, and join us again to uncover more hidden histories.